Randy, we got a problem.
What?
They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda. Like, I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
That was totally wicked!
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News in the Morning. I say in the morning because, I don't know, if we return to a little bit more normalcy here in the future, if the legislature's picking back up, if we're doing day jobs or something, it may be Real News in the evening. Either way, we're going to keep this community going because we put so much effort into building this thing. We're doing such an awesome job with y'all. We're getting emails in. Our boy Stacy sent us something last night. We're talking, we're having conversations. We're trying to grow this thing. I can't tell you how much I love y'all for what you do, for what we're bringing here. Start with a little bit of positivity because we're going to be getting into some very, very serious topics this morning. Like I said before, my name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson, buddy, sitting over there doing the producer thing, running all the live streams in the night that you see. That's totally him, by the way. Just so everyone's clear about that. That is 100% him doing that stuff, making sure what's going on, monitoring the comment section, making sure it's running on YouTube Live, really helping build the audience and awareness. Shine, buddy, how you doing this morning, man?
Man, I am feeling fantastic, sir. I'm having a great time. Thank you for everybody who joined in on watching the live Asheville protest last night. It was exciting to say the least, but happy to be here this morning. Hope everyone has an enjoyable show.
Already we're getting some comments in the Facebook here. If you want to follow along, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live, the best way, sort of centralized hub. You can find all our links to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. It also, I'm looking at it right now, actually, on the screen up here. If y'all are wondering what my setup when my eyes are doing this, by the way, I got a little, 24-inch right here. I'm looking at y'all right here. This is where the show notes are up that way. So that's what's going on. But I'm looking at it right now. It actually has the live stream going. We got a little bit of merch right there. Shine actually did this really cool logo bag in there too. I'm looking at this awesome as far in the words. It's got a massive QR code on the logo bag, which is just like, I'm kind of out in this right now, Shine, but it's already here. It's documented. I want to give your idea away. That's one of the coolest ideas I've seen in a long time, though, buddy. Honestly, you got a book bag that you wear in the back, a QR code in the back. That someone said, yeah, I'll scan that QR code, man. Whatever. He put it on his backpack. That's what I'm supposed to do. Boom. Real news, viral marketing like I've never seen before, dude. That's a cool idea. For real.
It was a pretty cool idea. I'll throw that out there. It was pretty cool. And in fact, let me throw. Let's see. I'm trying to throw it up here so they can't see anything weird. But here, I'm going to throw it up on the screen. There it is. That's the Real News, Spread Real News bag right there. And just so you know, this $18 that it says right here, that is at cost. Real News does not make any money on this. That's just the cost of this service to use it, to get them to make this bag. But you can spread real news. You could probably use your phone right now, and that'll bring up realnewsradio.live where all our streams are. So if you want to spread the show in real life, IRL, you can do that now by getting your logo linked bag at realnewsradio.live in the merch store.
Logo linked bag. Hey, by the way, show notes up there at the top as every morning. Click the Evernote link. You'll see all the stuff there. Letters to Legislator. Still need your help on HB 862, Civil Asset Forfeiture. It's just a simple reporting bill. Basically says, hey, if your stuff is taken and seized and forfeited in a civil court, we would also like to know if you were actually charged and convicted of a crime as well. The basic point of this is we want to be able to know if your stuff is being taken and you're not actually being convicted of a crime. We really just want to know how often that is happening. That's what that bill seeks to help and solve and change. Sign that petition up there if you would. Let us know. Let the committee members know exactly what your thoughts are on this thing. Let me dive headlong into the news here, because we got a jam-packed show that I'm sure is going to take us a while. Greatest audience in the nation, appreciation, by the way. Let us know how you're doing things, whatever else you need help for. Send us stuff for prayer requests, prayer concerns. You want good vibes sent your way, any of that type of stuff. Let's get directly into some of these headlines, though. Starting with a little bit local. Second suspect has been charged in connection to Nashville's historic courthouse fire. Now, interesting wrinkle here is coming from a Tennessean headliner. There's not much to this story, but interesting wrinkle before I dive into that story about a previous story. The first individual that was arrested, his wife has now come out and said there's no way that this guy did it. I don't know if she's going to present some sense of an alibi that he was with her on that particular night. I haven't read that much. I just know that that is the story that I've been seeing, as you would expect. So all I'm saying is don't expect sort of the controversy for this part to be done yet. I think that's going to be something we're going to be hearing more and more about. This story, however, second suspect been charged. Nashville police have charged a second person involved in the fire set to Metro Historic Courthouse Saturday night. Police said they've charged Jesse Lee Clark, 26-year-old, with aggravated arson, felony vandalism, and disorderly conduct after they say he broke windows at the courthouse and helped the first guy who we just mentioned, Wesley Somers, who was arrested and charged earlier in the week, ignite materials to set the fire. Now, since Saturday, 31 people have been arrested on charges related to vandalism, the courthouse fire, defying curfew, and disorderly conduct. Just a bit of update what's going on in the Nashville area. And I don't know, man, let me go to the comment section here real quick too. Before I jump into the national stories, I saw Stacy mentioning something about a second ago. Kelly said up there a second ago too. There's it. Kelly said, sad watching the live feed from Asheville, North Carolina last night with a bunch of broken heart emojis. Stacy said, I'm still not sure what I saw, or maybe I should say I can't believe what I saw. I feel bad for saying this, Shine, but I wasn't able to catch much of that live feed. Did some destruction go down? What happened in the Asheville thing last night? I thought it was kind of getting a little bit calmer. Where are we at with that? Mm.
So sorry, my microphone was off. But I wasn't there. I don't know any more details than anybody else. But it seems like about an hour and a half after curfew, the few, and I mean, there weren't nearly as many people left way after curfew as there were earlier on in the night, but there was some kind of smoke fired at crowds and media, and then there was a scattering of the crowd. And then there were reports of pockets of arrest around Grove Arcade. If you're familiar with the downtown Nashville area, the convention center, Grove Arcade. But even towards the end of the broadcast the Real News did, because I only covered when the action was happening. There were longer live streams. But I watched them, and I actually posted them on the Real News. It seemed like right after the smoke was deployed, there wasn't a whole lot going on. So, but if you want to find out more, I direct you. I think WLOS was doing the stream. Matt Henson, I believe, was a reporter on Facebook who had a live stream. Those are all places you could check that out. And if I find, I'll do some looking while we're doing the show. And if I find anything that I think really stands out, I'll send it over to Grant.
Let me jump into the national headlines here and make, again, one more appeal to the Real News audience in Facebook, YouTube. Shine, awesome, man. Help me, help keep me accountable to those YouTube comments or Twitch or anything else we might get in there. Shine has a massive sort of, not database, but just sort of an aggregate sort of software system.
Yeah,
that
I'll
puts
go ahead
all
and
those...
say hi to Taz on Twitch. Thanks for watching us on Twitch.
Twitch, what's up, buddy? Before I jump into these national stories, rather, it's gonna get deep. All right, and I'm gonna make some statements today that we're gonna go way into the deep end here. So just buckle up for a little bit, man. Let us know how you're feeling as we drive this show, as Real News does. We want to hear from the community and have this be community driven. Starting off with this WFLA headline. This is also a national headline. Just figured I'd try and go a little bit more local, I suppose. Minnesota Attorney General charges all 4 officers in George Floyd's death. This came out yesterday. The prosecutors filed a tougher charge Wednesday against the police officer at the center of the George Floyd case. Prosecutors filed a tougher, and I stress that word there, tougher, because it means tougher in both senses, I believe. Tougher in the sense that it would carry a stronger sentence, but tougher also in the sense that I believe it would be slightly more difficult to prove. The guilty conviction would be slightly more difficult to obtain. Moving on. Prosecutors filed a tougher charge Wednesday against the police officer at the center of the George Floyd case and charged 3 other officers delivering a victory to protesters galvanized by a death that roused racial tensions and unleashed coast-to-coast unrest. The most serious charge was filed against Derek Chauvin, who was caught on video pressing his knee to Floyd's neck. Since then, that individual has now been charged with second-degree murder. They moved up from third to second-degree murder. Now, getting into the sort of, the legality behind the difference between third and second degree murder, we can do that if you want to. If you have questions about that, let me know on the Facebook. We can certainly break that down. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary. It's necessary just to understand what I said before. It's slightly harder to prove, and it carries a slightly larger sentence. 3 other officers that were there at the scene, they were all also charged for the first time yesterday with aiding and abetting second degree murder and second degree manslaughter. Man, that's interesting right there, right? Aiding and abetting second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. All 4 obviously were fired last week. Now, according to the criminal complaint, Chauvin, while Floyd was complaining he couldn't, this is actually coming, from the family attorney Ben Crump. According to the criminal complaint against Chauvin, while Floyd was complaining he couldn't breathe, Lane, one of the other officers, Thomas Lane, asked Chauvin twice if they should roll him over on his side. Chauvin said that they should keep him on his stomach. Now, the family attorney, Ben Crump, said that Chauvin's action showed intent. That's the important word there, showed intent. It's the word you need to keep in the back of your mind as we're going from third to second degree as well. Ben Crump, family attorney, said that those actions showed intent to kill and said that the other officers were complicit because they failed to take action. Here's a quote from family attorney. "We are expecting those officers to be charged as accomplices." Now, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, This is arguably, in my opinion, the most important part of what came out yesterday. This is his quote, saying, quote, "His life had value and we will seek justice." He went on to caution, however, though, that winning convictions would be hard and said that public pressure had no bearing on his decisions. I stress that just one more time as we're entering this next phase, as we're entering this next period, man. Just understand that I think the convictions are one thing, but the legislation behind it that shackles both juries and judges to a particular legal outcome is what I have always stressed is possibly the point of some of these movements. Back from the very beginning, I'm talking of the NFL kneeling controversy. Maybe I was the sole voice articulating this. I don't know, but I was out there saying, if you really want to get to the heart of what's going on, anybody else kneeling, take a 12.5-foot, 20-foot banner and unfurl it, roll it out behind you with a piece of legislation that actually articulates how and why an officer is allowed to use lethal force to arrest an individual for misdemeanor. Because if there is some type of suspicion under the officer's discretion that individual is going to go cause harm to another person, legally speaking, they were within their rights, meaning the scope of employment of an officer, to use lethal force to stop that from happening. Now, if you don't like that, the legislation is what you're going after. Change that legislation. If you don't like what happens in the courtrooms, understand that there is a different legal standard that officers are held to than your average individual. This is the core component of what all of this is about. This is why I keep stressing, I think it does a slight disservice in a semantic way to make this about race first and police brutality second. I truly believe those should be reversed if they haven't been already. Let the police brutality story tell the story of the racial component. That will happen by way of statistics alone. But adding that race component first, it confuses the issue for some people. And for some people, unfortunately, it does make it a dividing issue. And by some people, I would venture to say arguably half the country. This is what I've said from the very beginning. Make it about the legislation behind this. The legislation behind this, what happens in the courtroom, how and why these things are dictated in the 4 corners of a document, that is a unifying factor because we're all subject to that. Right? Let the stats of that unifying factor play out the other component behind that. Let it prove it for you. There's no need to force the other one on top of that. And I say that now just because we saw what happened with the Trayvon Martin stuff. And that was just a guy that was in a stand your ground state. In this decision that's about to come up, just understand, like this attorney said, it's going to be difficult to get a conviction right here. Moving on. And a part of this story that, goodness gracious, man. Amy Klobuchar. Someone help me with this real quick, too, in the Facebook section. I did not think to fact check this, but I'm virtually certain that it was Klobuchar who had an opportunity to prosecute this specific individual, this specific officer, Chauvin, and just refused to do so. Am I correct in that? I think I'm correct in that. Because every time I see this lady tweet about something like this, I want to think like this is a fairly ironic stance for Klobuchar to be making. Goodness gracious, man. Weren't you the former attorney general of that state? Klobuchar, U.S. Senator from Minnesota, announced via Twitter that Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison increased the charges against Chauvin and will be charging the other 3 officers. And I couldn't help but think, like, I don't know, bro. I don't, maybe you should have done that as a point. Not increasing charges, but maybe you should have done something.
Good job, Amy.
Good job, Amy.
You would have been such a good president. Really good.
I lay some of that out right now, man, just to show you that as we're moving into these next stories, man, I'm just it's a bit of a cautionary tale this morning. And Sean, if you could pull up that section here that says what NAACP is demanding. And frankly, y'all, I did not source check this beyond this post right here. And I did that for a very specific reason to help prove out one more thing that Real News is going to do today. I want to pause for a second and just let everybody read what's on the screen and see what they think about, say these updated demands from NAACP, whether they're reasonable or unreasonable, whether you think there's some rationality behind them or not, whether you would be open to even have conversations about this or not. The bigger picture, the bigger point I'm trying to prove is actually beyond this post, and I'll get to that in a second, but for the time being, this is an update from NAACP. What we're demanding: a ban on the use of knee holds and chokeholds is an acceptable practice for police officers. I don't know. I'm reading through this with y'all. Okay, I'm doing this live time. I don't necessarily find much of a problem with that at all. The use of force continuum for any police department in the country must ensure that there are at least 6 levels of steps with clear rules on escalation. On its face, that doesn't sound too outrageous to me. And again, check me on some of this stuff, okay? I'm literally reading through this the first time. I saw this last night because the point I'm trying to prove with this is not necessarily what's on your screen. It's about how or why this was posted. I'll get to that in a minute. But check me on some of this stuff. If I'm wrong in this, if it doesn't sound reasonable, let me know. Third point, each state's Open Records Act must ensure officer misconduct information and disciplinary histories are not shielded from the public. Recertification credentials may be denied for police officers if determined that their use of deadly force was unwarranted by federal guidelines. Again, on its face, that doesn't sound too ridiculous. Frankly speaking, it sounds right in line with a lot of what everybody's been asking for. A conservative, liberal, it doesn't matter. Transparency is something that I think everybody has asked for. Lastly, implementation of citizens review boards in municipalities to hold police departments accountable and build public confidence. Now, I could possibly see some type of pushback there if you're talking about, well, just let me know who's going to be on this citizen review board. Is this an elected position? Is this appointed by some person?
It would have to be elected, right? I mean,
that's what I would think so, right?
You know, I'm going to try to, I don't know if I can actually get this done, but I'm going to try to get us a guest that can maybe explain the concept of community review board, because I've heard that thrown around a lot. It would see even at the Knoxville protest, that was a big topic of discussion. I'd like to know more specifics about that, so I'll see if I can figure that out.
Sean, and go ahead and pull up that next video, man. The next step down as I intro this. All right. So what you see on your screen right now, reading through it, first read, first glance, not looking into any particular type of motivation or anything otherwise, doesn't sound that outrageous. Yeah, the Twitter one that says right underneath, yeah. So that stuff is not all that outrageous. But part of the cautionary tale that Real News would like to tell this morning is a little bit of like some of this stuff is getting to the point of not just being outrageous, but what I would call actually borderline condescending. And for the reasons that may not be directly obvious right now, our buddy Zig, the other day in the program here, and quick pause, give me 15 minutes Look at this. Give me 15 minutes left just to prove this next point here. Because hopefully by the end of this 15 minutes, the entire thing's going to make a little bit more sense. There's going to be a couple rocky points in the road, though. So just let me pull out the entirety of this. Our buddy Zig, he said a little while ago, people are not becoming less religious. They're actually becoming more religious. They're just changing what the God is. And Sean, I'll let you play the audio here in a second, but what you're about to watch, think about it this way. This is a tweet from somebody I found. I'll cite this here in a second, but this is what this guy said. The rituals at these protests closely resemble what you would see at an evangelical-style religious service. Collective kneeling or sitting in prayer, hands raised reverentially to the sky, liturgical chants. This is a new expression of secular civic religion. Now, Sean, go ahead and play the audio behind this so people can get an understanding as to what's going on.
About racism, anti-blackness, or violence. I will use my voice in the most uplifting way possible. And do everything in my power to educate my community. I will love my black neighbors the same as my white ones. About
All right, and I want to just give a bit of a pregnant pause here, just to let the audience somewhat marinate on this. I want to give Shine an opportunity to respond as well, because I don't think the Real News audience is going to possibly expect my reaction out of this. I'm going to caution against a particular behavior, but not for the reasons that may be entirely obvious right now. Again, I think. Yeah, Zigger's our buddy who actually, he's the one that said that people are not becoming less religious. They're becoming more religious. They're just changing what the gods are. Sean, go ahead.
So you just want me to give my opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, just if you want to give your take again, because I'm going to dive into something totally different. It's going to be a bit of a rant style thing. I just want to make sure people have their opinion, their chance to voice their opinion on this first before I kind of go off on something.
Well, I'll take the same opinion as and I didn't get this from Tim Pool. I was already thinking about this, but Tim Pool had a tweet the other day with that video in it. And I don't know if you saw that, Grant. I'm sure you got found it another place maybe, but it said, "I'm not going to join your cult." That was his tweet, and he did a little further explanation in his live show from last night, and I'd encourage people to go watch it because there's many videos like this. And I'm kind of in the same space. Like, I'm all for equal rights. I'm all for, especially equal rights. I can just stop right there, right? I don't even need to go any further and virtue signal or whatever. I'll be sincere. I'm for equal rights. I'm for treating everyone with respect. I'm for equal protection under the law. But I'm not joining a cult to do that. And you mentioned the word liturgy. That's our liturgical
chants, yeah.
So we should tell people what that is, maybe, because that adds some context. Is anybody in the chat Catholic or Episcopal or one of the, I don't know, what do we call it, the old world religions, you know? That's what you do at church for the first 15 minutes. They read, right? Isn't that what happens, Grant? I mean, I know you're not Episcopal or Catholic or whatever, but I've been to Catholic services. You go and they read you stuff from the Bible and you repeat it back. Or just go watch some of those movies about cults on Netflix. I can't remember them all, but that seems to be really popular on Netflix right now. You'll find that in every single one. It's a thing people do to cement stuff in their minds and to cement that the person who's telling you to repeat stuff is an authority over you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a psychological tactic, and I'm not, whether this is on purpose or not, I have no idea. I'm not necessarily saying that the people leading the chants are cult leaders or anything like that. But what I'm saying is this is setting alarm bells off for me in a weird way, because we're not even talking about some kind of new religion. We're talking about zealotry. Zealots do this kind of stuff. And I don't know. I'm worried about it not being a social movement and becoming a religious movement, because that, I hate to say it, that makes it feel more dangerous. But that's all I'll say about it. But I do like what Zig said about, because he did say people are aren't less religious. Their gods have changed. But in a private conversation, I don't think he'd mind if I told everybody this. There's a part of your brain that runs religion. I don't know if you know that or not. There's a religious part of your brain. And if you don't have one, your brain will use that for other things. And it won't call it religion, but it'll still act the same way. That was, and I don't know if that's true. I'm not a brain doctor, but that seems to be the case. Because look how much over the past 100 years that people have made the state or their political ideology their God. So they're God, little g.
Matt said in Facebook here, as Sean's pulling up that next YouTube video right down there, buddy, white liberals blasted over black squares. Matt said in Facebook, they were doing this in Germany years ago. Eric said restricting someone's airway is dangerous and should not be used at all. There are ways to minimize risk, even from a stance where you take someone's back, especially when 4 officers are present. Kelly went on to say, wow, I don't know if this just makes me sad.
You're not a
but
dish.
I feel like this is just weird. Eric went on to say the state is a religion. Same behaviors as any church I've seen. The world is getting weirder every single day. And Stacy finally said here, there are a few things that motivate. There are a few things that motivate, like faith, and nothing more dangerous when corrupted. That's a very interesting statement, right? Shine, if you could, though, this is where I want.
Before you get into your rant, do you mind if I play them one more video to prove the point?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, let me play one more, and not prove the point. I'm sorry about that. Add to the point. Because this is, in my opinion, this is the next step. The first step is go to church and express the beliefs that you're supposed to express. This is the priest coming and asking you to ask forgiveness.
Excuse me. Hey, excuse me. I work for Black Lives Matter.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you.
That's okay.
But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees because you have white privilege. So if they see that a white person is getting on their knees, that shows solidarity for the situation. And could you just please apologize for your white privilege? Just apologize.
I am. I'm trying to think of the right words to say because that's a big thing to say.
It's big.
It comes from.
It's large in this country.
I'm incredibly sorry that.
With this country, we have that President Donald Duck, that clown in office. He's brought a lot of bigotry, and you're not a part of it, right?
No, God. Jeez.
No. And so,
Thank
just.
you for letting me have a moment.
There you go.
And I think most people that would watch our program that would see that would probably agree that this type of increasingly sort of say performative wokeness, which is the term that I took from someone else, so I can't actually claim that, but I think it's a sense of performative wokeness. I don't think anybody would agree with that. I think it's divisive, and I think what's happening right now, and that's why I said before, I think out of all this stuff right now, the prioritization, and maybe I'm wrong, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the prioritization of focusing on the legislation, on the culture that's been created, of what's happening in our judicial system, what's happening with the police state, what's happening with sort of the overarching authority. Let that tell the story of the racial component. Look, I promise y'all right now, if you go pull stats on the war on drugs, that will tell you the story of racism. If you go pull stats right now on the incarceration rate per capita of American citizens compared to the rest of the developed world, compared to China, forget about the rest of the developed world, that alone will tell you the story of a racial component. It doesn't need to necessarily be shoehorned in there. The purpose of a focus like this is something that these documents that apply to every single one of us need to be fundamentally rethought. These barriers need to be removed for every single person. Let it be a grassroots upworking on a socioeconomic level that just so happens to organically tap every single person there. That is a unifying factor. And here's what I'm saying. If someone is not sincere about making rational, reasonable change, I would caution my friends. I would especially caution my white liberal friends about acting too zealous during this particular time period. I caution against this particular behavior for reasons that may not be entirely obvious. A well-intentioned social media post can have consequences of actually looking condescending. Shine, if you could, buddy, There's that video there. It says white liberals blasted over black squares. It's a YouTube link. It should be ready right at 42 seconds. Play that real quick. Go ahead. We'll stop it at minute 2:01. Go ahead and play that. Oh, it's Sean. Sorry, 2 seconds, buddy. Started at 42 seconds. Just to give you context, this is an individual that is specifically speaking about the virtue signaling aspect of this black square stuff that was going on the other day. And this is a little bit of what I'm talking about. If it's done out of an intention to purely virtue signal without being sincere about wanting to make reasonable change, this is the type of the reaction that you can get because it ends up looking condescending. Go ahead and start at 42 seconds there for us, though, Sean.
We tell y'all exactly what to do. Exactly what to do, and y'all still find a way to do the least amount of possible, the thing that takes the least amount of effort. And not only that, you chose something that actively does harm. You chose to take the hashtags we're using to disseminate information about where the cops are, about how to keep people safe, about how to find resources, about organizing. You all take it and you fill it up with a bunch of black squares? What the are you thinking? Y'all just see somebody do some and then I don't even understand how the we can't get y'all to organize around else but posting black squares. How did y'all even do it that fast? Huh? Was it like a dumb email chain? How? I can't even comprehend how all of you all got on the same page to do the same clown ass thing.
You can stop it there, Sean. By the way, that chuckling you heard was neither myself nor Shine. That was from the show host that I pulled this from, the guy named Michael Knowles. I couldn't find the original source clip anywhere else, and it was such a good thing to prove this point, I had to keep it in there. But you understand what I'm saying now, okay? Lacking sincerity and refusing to admit one's inability to empathize will only cause this messaging to come across as disingenuous. Tell me I'm wrong after what you just watched. Moreover, those delivering the message lose the ability to relate to those that are actually struggling because it has never been about enacting meaningful, rational, reasonable change for some of these individuals that are posting just a black square or just posting some sense of virtue signal by itself. It's only ever been about that virtue signal. Subsequently, the entire message ends up becoming extremely belittling. This isn't new, by the way. We were warned about this all the way back in 2000. We were warned again in 2014 by the Supreme Court of the United States. More on that in just a second. This isn't new. There's a Vox article that I'm going to go to next here. The main thing I want to focus on is this one particular graphic. This is where it's going to get a little bit rocky here. And I would really like some comment section for Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, wherever else you're watching. Consider the following Vox survey from 2019. I did not find this myself. This is sourced to me from somebody else. Great part of the Real News audience. I appreciate y'all. Look at this graphic. Shine, maybe the easiest part to find is actually in the show notes itself. White liberals' opinion has actually moved to the left of black Americans. Here's the question that was posed to white liberals. And this is Vox's survey, okay? It's just liberals today. Could be anybody else tomorrow. This is actually more speaking to the idea of not allowing a sense of rationality to the exclusion of the virtue signal. Here's the question. Irish, Italians, Jewish, and many other minorities overcame prejudice and worked their way up. Blacks should do the same without special favors. Look at where white liberals are. This is 2019. Now, the up 10 trick has been going since, around 2008? Look at where white liberals are. Look at where black individuals are. Now you immediately, you may say initially, well, I don't necessarily see the problem with that. What's so wrong about that, Mr. Henry? I'm not following you. How does that get back to the idea that you're cautioning against this kind of behavior? What's not entirely obvious about this? How does that relate at all to the video that we just watched? Because the cynic could look at this material, the cynic could look at this graph and interpret that last graph. A cynic might look at this and say or think to himself, hold on, man, hold on. So in some weird sense, it almost seems like what white liberals are thinking to themselves is that black people are only capable of achievement with the help of special favors. Do you understand how belittling that could seem to a black person? I cannot be the only person that sees this. This is the unintended consequences of what I'm talking about. If you allow the virtue signal to lead and do not pause to seek knowledge first in anything, but especially something like this, my only appeal for today is just be sincere. Just be honest. Supreme Court warned us about this. Someone could look at this data and say, hang on, man, I don't get it. Are you saying white liberals? Is the thought there that African Americans are only capable of achievement with special favors? That is such an insanely belittling way to look at this. And it's a cynic's viewpoint. I get that. I don't necessarily think that white liberals are even understanding that's what they're doing. It's just back to the religious angle of it. They have faith in the religion. They have faith in the religion, and they have faith that the religion is going to lead them correctly. And this is Mr. Henry's part, the part of me that y'all probably don't like. I don't necessarily blame them for that. And I know I'm going to get some pushback for that. That's fine. I don't necessarily blame them for that because it is their faith that is leading them. This messaging resembles some kind of white savior complex. It's entirely inconsistent with a message of restoration, healing, and empowerment. A white savior complex is entirely inconsistent with a message of empowerment. Overbearing virtue signals actually tend to reinforce the imagery of subjugation. They reinforce the imagery of subjugation. That graph somehow could actually dictate to me or to the cynic that some white people might actually feel that there's a need out there, that but for our existence, nothing could happen. White liberals also perceive this in this is Vox's words, y'all. Okay, if you're taking offense, I'm sorry. These are Vox's surveys. It's not just about a racial component necessarily. White liberals also perceive significantly greater voter suppression than both blacks and Hispanics. Shine, go ahead and show them in the show notes there. There's another graph. Here's the question. How often are people who are eligible or legally allowed to vote denied the right to vote or stopped from voting? White liberals were asked this 37%. They think that's 37% of the time. Black people polled 27%. Hispanics polled 21%. Non-liberal whites, 6.8%. They're basically saying, okay, so what percentage of the time do you think that voter suppression is happening? White liberals are saying, like, I don't know, like 40% of the time. Black people are saying, like, I don't know, dude, at best, like 27% of the time. I don't know. This is a little bit of the retort that you hear from Republicans from time to time about voter ID laws. The idea behind voter ID laws is that, like, I know it's harder for marginalized minorities to be able to find a library or to find a driver's license or anything else like that. And again, let me pause one more time before I get into this last stat. Some of the stuff that I'm saying today is oddly controversial. I understand. All I'm asking for is for everyone to be honest and sincere about their deficiencies, about their lack of knowledge, about anything, bro, about anything. Before you feel the compulsion, because that's where we're in. A religion compels you to do something. Before you feel the compulsion to signal something that you don't know about, seek knowledge on that first, please. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I think anybody has been asking for in all of this stuff. And I say that one more time just to say it's getting oddly controversial. I want to make a quick segment here. This is my thoughts. These are my thoughts. Hard line of delineation. I am not representing any particular organization. I'm not representing Shine. I don't know. I'm representing portions of Real News, but there's 3 or 4 people that are actually still admins on this page. I don't know if y'all know that. There's a bunch of people that are working behind the scenes on this stuff. This is just me speaking right now. Lastly, it's not just an issue of race relations either. White liberals, again, in the show notes there, Sean, if you want to show them the last graph, white liberals also rate immigrants significantly more warmly than other demographics do. Here's the mean feeling thermometer scores towards immigrants. White liberals rate a warm feeling of immigrants at 76%. Look at the racial diversity across the rest of the spectrum there. Again, I only caution to watch out for some of these unintended perceptions. Be honest. What may end up happening out of this is a very, very condescending, belittling outcome. You just heard the person in the last video speak about this. The Supreme Court warned us about this very thing in 2014. The dicta of that affirmative action case said exactly this. Be careful about treating a particular group as a liability. That's one of the reasons, again, shout out to Sherry Voluntary here, y'all. That is one of the reasons why I appreciate what she does so much. She may come off as caustic from time to time, and she may come off as frankly, a little bit argumentative, but at her very core, what she believes is that every single individual is as capable as the other. In a Christian sense, even, she thinks that every single individual has a particular role to play of the body, and if played properly, goodness gracious, man, we could get pretty darn close to a utopia. Every single individual is worthy. Now, Sean, I've been ranting for 15 minutes here, buddy, and I appreciate everybody for sticking around long enough to be able to hear me get through that. I mean, that's some of the stuff that's been on me for a long time. I honestly, I don't know. Let me hit some of the Facebook comments, some of the YouTube stuff, man, because the story I'm about to jump to is entirely unrelated. But go ahead, Sean, what'd you say? Yeah. Eric said, I don't know what they were talking about there. Daniel said Joe Biden, poor kids can be just as smart as white kids. Yeah. Eric said in Facebook, here's their logic and why it's based in hypocrisy. They want equality for minorities, sexual and gender preference, etc. Basically, that things that a person cannot help being born that way. They also believe that white people have privilege and there's nothing that can be done about it because they are born into a system of white supremacy. So they're also born that way. If they don't want to be judged for something they are born into, why do they judge those of white people that are apparently born that way? Matt says, I blame them. Matt was referencing when I said I don't blame them. Matt says, no, he does blame them. I get it. I get it. I think that's probably the starting point for most people. He says they refuse to think and let someone else steer their ship. Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I get it. But at the same time, I think that's why we focus so hard on the religious angle, the religious aspect of, I think, what's happening here, because arguably, and this is going to be really controversial, but arguably people can make the exact same argument about Christians. That from time to time, Christians may not exactly think all the way through. They're just sort of led by their pastor.
All right, now I can jump in.
There you go.
Now I can jump in. But you know what the benefit of all these Abrahamic religions is, Grant? You know what the benefit is? They have a book.
Yes, sir.
They also have thousands of years of writings. You can actually hold their own rules against them when they break them. This new cult has no book. They have no rules. They have no consistency. Yesterday, we were at war with East Asia, and now we've never been at war with East Asia. You know what I'm saying?
You want to know the other
that's what worries me is the shifting sands, or what's another meme that people use, the field goal post getting moved back, right? Moving back the goal post. There is no consistency, and everything is okay as long as you virtue signal to the cause, right? That's what worries me, and it's a fair critique on the Abrahamic religions, right? Obviously, fair critique. But we're also talking about thousands of years. You're going to be able to cherry pick some stuff out of that. But at least they have a book. They have rules that you can beat them over the head with when they're not following them. That's what worries me a little bit.
You know, the other difference out of that as well, man, is there's allowance for forgiveness. I do not see there being forgiveness on this other side here. I do not see.
How do you get forgiven after you get cancel cultured?
You don't. There is no forgiveness. There is no allowance for sacrificial atonement. There is no way that you can technically better yourself. That's one of my real concerns with what's happening right now. There is no pathway for progression. I mean, the fundamental idea, the basic syllogism, A plus B equaling C, behind how you progress as a human being implies that you have to fail. That is what's inherent within freedom. The freedom to fail. Now, when we do fail, what's supposed to happen as a human species is we learn from that failure and we do it better the next time around. In order to do that, though, there has to be something baked into the ideology. There has to be something sufficient enough in the worldview to make account for how I can be forgiven. In the idea of Christianity, it's already been done. That's been taken care of, right? That lamb has went out ahead of us to make provision for the way that when we do fail, and we will every single day, it is inevitable. We will fail every single day. But it is not just in spite of our failures, it's through those failures that a sanctification process happens, that you become a better person. And the rest of the community not only accepts that, they are driven by the same motivating factor to get to be a better person. The other side of this, dude, you mess up once, cancel culture, done, out of here, excommunicated. Not just social ostracism, bro. Like, you lose friends, you lose jobs.
You could lose the safety of your persons and your effects as well. As we've seen journalists being targeted by mobs over the past 4 or 5 days. I can't remember it. Cassandra Fairbanks got her house, over 60 bullets shot at her house, and over 100 fireworks shot at her house. Now I'm not here to defend Cassandra Fairbanks or anything she's ever said. She was trolling people all week long and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean she deserves death, right? Just like George Floyd doesn't deserve death, no matter what he did. Everybody deserves adjudication before they lose any kind of freedom, especially freedom of life. But I think it's disclaimer time, Grant, a little bit, just to make sure we're clear. This is not to discredit the movement in the country right now. This is not to discredit anybody who's taken a stand on any side. This is not to discredit the actual legal movements that are going on right now to change laws forever, which Grant and I are a part of as best we can, a part of trying to remove barriers, things that are part of the systemic racism tapestry in the state of Tennessee and other places. This is not for that. This is to call out specific behavior from specific people that we feel like we should warn the audience about. Because something about religion that's a little weird, you think that you can stop thoughts from happening in your head. I don't know if that's really true. You can't stop dreams, can you? Right? These kind of things are very underneath things. They're undercurrents. And we wanted to tell you about them now so you don't wake up one day and say, whoa, what happened to me? And I'm not saying that any of you can be led astray. But anyway, we just felt like we wanted to point out a certain kind of behavior with certain people. We're not here to discredit a movement or make anyone feel stupid for taking any kind of emotional stance. We're just cautioning you to be sincere.
No, and moreover, man, you're exactly right. Moreover, I hope what we're doing is actually drawing further attention to the need for reform, for the need for change. I hope that's what we're doing. I hope what we're really doing is burning off some of the things that I don't think are healthy right now. I don't think we need to be focusing on. I think we are at a time right now, and it's literally a very, very small window, and it is made out of insanely fragile glass. We have an extremely limited period of time to get this correct, because the next thing's going to come. Dude, tell me that y'all have not been paying attention to 2020. Every single month, every single week, there is something wildly different. And it's a new, not just level of controversy, man. It's a new sort of type apocalyptic scenario. There's a very limited window right now to do something about this properly. And it needs a sense of unity. We need to coalesce and come together. We need to find points of common ground, as much symbiotic overlap as we can possibly have right now to get this right. I tell you one more time, man, Frederick Douglass, now is seriously the time that we need to unite with anyone to do right and no one to do wrong. You hear me there? That's what I hope the messages that we're getting across today is, to forget about the distractions and make meaningful change going forward, but in the change the way that it needs to be made. And I say that stuff's getting strange, man. You don't know what to expect. Like, some of the stuff, like, you just couldn't account it for, and you couldn't account for how this is going to change the narrative. Look at this next story here, coming from an ABC local affiliate. It's apparently a new autopsy report that confirms that George Floyd had coronavirus. Like, what in the world, man? I don't even know if that even, I don't know what to do with that. I feel like, see, this is what I'm saying. Flashback to yesterday. This is why Justin Trudeau took a 23-second pause. Because life itself is giving too much information for us to compute properly. It's too fast. We have not evolved yet to be able to synthesize that information quick enough, man. An autopsy report of George Floyd released Wednesday reveals that he had coronavirus. The full report released by the county medical examiner officers confirms Floyd died May 25th after his heart stopped as a police officer restrained him and suppressed his neck, but also says he tested positive for the 2019 coronavirus, otherwise known as novel coronavirus. The document states that he tested positive on April 3rd. Now, since PCR positivity for 2019 can persist for weeks after the onset of the resolution of clinical disease, the autopsy results may likely reflect asymptomatic but persistent PCR positivity from previous infection. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, Shine. Something like this could send you off into a wild tangent. Something like this.
Well, did anybody get sick when they were doing the autopsy? I mean, what's going to happen next? Ah!
Right. And now all of a sudden, all we're talking about is the possible cause of death. And we're not discussing the stuff we should be. These are the distractions that I'm talking about, y'all. This is what I'm saying. We are right there. We were there before, and then it sort of fell off. We're right there again right now. We have the opportunity to do some meaningful change here. And I'm not saying this is something that should not be discussed. I'm just saying, at least for the time being, there's some distractions going on. And nobody can make sense of any of this, man. Just hitting a few more headlines as the show ends here, man. I really... This is where I'm trying to make sense of something. Pull up that next tweet there, Shine, from Mark Levine. Levine, however you say his name. Levine. This is a tweet from Mark Levine, and this is what I'm saying, dude. Stuff is so weird right now. I have to constantly check myself to try and seek additional knowledge if there's something that I'm missing because it's so strange. I don't know what the reference point is anymore. Because we're all speaking the same English language, but the message is missing. There's a loss of communication somewhere. We're lost in translation somehow. Look at this tweet on your screen. And click on his name real quick, Sean, and show him what it's not like this guy's some just rando. He's the chair of the New York City Health Committee. He's the chair of the New York City Health Committee. His statement is, let's be clear about something. If there is a spike in coronavirus cases in the next 2 weeks, don't blame the protesters, blame racism. And Shine, I got to give, I don't even know the best word. It's not like props. It's not accommodation. I just have to say to you and the Real News audience, a bit of recanting for where I came from yesterday. Y'all got this one right for sure. I came out yesterday and I said, like, okay, look, man, if there's anything positive that might come from these massive amounts of protests, it's that both Democrats and Republicans have probably lost the moral high ground on this. And hopefully, I was literally fingers crossed yesterday when I said, hopefully what that means is the only consistent stance on this has been from the scientists and the doctors. And maybe everyone will call out the other one's hypocrisy and inconsistency so much that just the doctors and the scientists' voice alone would rise to the top and would, free of bias, free of spin, free of any kind of punditry. Dude, this is saturated with punditry. This is the quintessential definition of something like that. And
we've never been at war with East Asia. We've never been at war with East Asia. And you are a, what do they call it? When you're against your country, what do they call that? I don't know. You're a bad person for believing.
Traitor or something?
Traitor, yeah. You're a traitor for even bringing it up, Grant. You're a traitor.
Yeah. Well,
for even bringing it up. Don't you love the state? Good Lord. There's more, though.
Eric said Hegelian dialectic is right in front of us. Hey, Cameron. I don't even know who that person is. Do I know Cameron? What's up, Cameron? I don't know if I've met you, but thanks so much for joining. He said yes. Something we were saying a second ago he agreed with, so that's awesome. Matt said best apocalypse ever. Goodness gracious. Stacy said I'm starting to think that the Mayans were right just 20 years too early.
Or they were dyslexic, right? Instead of 2012, they meant 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah.
Hey, tomorrow we should do apocalypse memes just for fun. There's so many good. The memes haven't been this good since World War III in January. Remember we almost had World War III in January?
Yeah.
That was just a preview.
And I know, man, it feels dire. It feels apocalyptic. It feels, it is what it is. But I'll tell you this much, bro. Like, I don't know necessarily if I would have sort of stumbled across some of this conversation with one of our great Real News people yesterday that got me to that graph I found. I don't know if I would have stumbled across some of the realizations that I've been making over the last couple of days. I don't know if I would have been nearly as enthusiastic about making meaningful, impactful change, even though I've devoted the majority of my adult life to this specific topic that is happening right now. Since my 2L year in law school, this has been my bag, my gig. But I don't know if I would have been nearly as enthusiastic about this than I would have otherwise. Here's my point with all that. It feels apocalyptic, but one more time, a species on the brink of extinction is never more apt to evolve. This change is healthy. Man, Gabi's right over there. Gabi's my beautiful wife, by the way. Say hey, Gabi. No one can see. She listens to our show every morning, literally 5 feet away from me, which is so awesome. Anyways, we're doing this workout thing right now, trying to reverse actually the 15-pound gain for the coronavirus shutdown. We're trying to reverse that with a 15-pound loss. And this workout routine that we're doing, this guy keeps coming across, and it didn't actually click until just 2 days ago. He keeps coming across, and we're in the middle of workout, and you're sweating, and like, dude, your muscles are like on fire. Dude, it's on fire. My body is on fire because that lactic acid buildup, and you're trying to shake it off. And then he comes on the screen and says, this is what it's like to feel alive. And it didn't hit me, man, until just 2 days back. I was like, yeah, right? Like the juxtaposition between pain and pleasure. What the pain is meant for, the purpose behind it sometimes, what you can do with that potential. That's what it's like to be alive. I know that's a bit hokey, Shine, but I mean, seriously, it pushes, it propels, it forces you to get a little bit better. And how satisfying. Walk into the
chaos long enough, you get used to it, and then start making order out of it.
Right? How satisfying is it to look on the back end, too, and just see that sense of accomplishment, immediate, right? Almost instantaneous accomplishment sometimes when you got it right and you did it right.
We'll all be stronger because of the things we're going through, and I'll echo Matt Burns's comment that it's the best apocalypse ever because we get to spend it with all of you. And I never could have thought, I've been worried about societal collapse for 10, 15 years, you know, in some kind of way, or at least societal disruption like we're dealing with now. And I never thought I'd get to spend it doing a show with Mr. Henry every morning and with all of you on Facebook and YouTube, Twitch, and Mixer. It's the best, and I appreciate you all.
Hey, and as we're into the show here today, there's a couple other things in the show notes. We might get to these tomorrow. Apple is warning that if you're looting their stores with their stolen iPhones, you're being tracked by the iPhones, which is, I mean, I don't know how you wouldn't know that, but Tom Cotton wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that is just causing all kind of weird controversy on the interwebs, if you will, basically saying like, hey, send in the troops, quell this, shut it down. New York Times is taking it. They had to devote 2 different op-eds about that initial op-ed just to counter those op-eds, the first op-ed, and now we're in this weird op-ed change between David Brooks. He's an op-ed journalist for the New York Times. He came out with a tweet, basically said, well, I believe in democracy, and I believe in the free press, and I believe in open debate, and I love it when my newspaper prints things I disagree with because it causes me to think. He is now facing cancel culture. A couple other stories you may want to check out. Mattis is coming out. That was in the show notes. Didn't get a chance to get on today, but you'll see part of his statement right there. Full statement is linked in the show notes. Mattis, a few others. Definitely check that YouTube video of current Defense Secretary Mark Esper as well. He has some thoughts on what's going on. Hey, for today, seriously, I love each and every one of you. I love this community we're building. I love the feedback we're getting. Let us know if there's any particular way. Cameron said it on the way out here. That threshold of greatness is at the very edge of where we think we can't continue. Dude, that's beautiful. That's how we end the show. That threshold of greatness is at the very edge of where we think we can't continue. I got nothing better to say than that. My name is Mr. Henry, David Shine Thompson, signing off this morning. We love y'all. See you tomorrow.